Chosen one, pause for a moment and feel this before you continue. Not everyone is meant to hear what you're about to receive. If you're only scrolling, only curious, only entertained, this will pass over you without landing. But if something in your chest tightened when you read that, if your spirit leaned in instead of pulling away, then understand this clearly: you are here by permission, not coincidence. This is not content. This is a summons. And the fact that you're still here means something inside you already knows this message is about you. You didn't arrive early. You didn't arrive late. You arrived at the precise moment heaven opened the door. And what makes this moment different is that life has felt heavier recently, but also sharper. More intense, but also clearer. Like something has been demanding your attention without explaining itself. That unrest wasn't confusion. It was pressure before promotion. Because recently, you did something that caused a reaction far beyond what you could see. Not because it was dramatic, not because it was loud, but because it revealed a level of inner authority that had not been visible before. Here's where most people miss it. Heaven does not react to noise. It responds to alignment. And when you moved recently, whether by refusing something you once chased, releasing something you once clung to, staying silent where you once reacted, or choosing integrity over relief, you crossed a line spiritually. It looked small on the outside, ordinary, almost forgettable. But internally it was a declaration, and the unseen realm paused. Not because God was surprised. God knows your beginning and your ending. But the watchers, the observers, the ones assigned to monitor progression, saw you act from a version of yourself that wasn't supposed to show up yet. You didn't fold where you used to fold. You didn't panic where you used to spiral. You didn't reach for what once owned you. And that disruption sent a ripple through assignments that were counting on your predictability. The enemy had studied your patterns, your triggers, your emotional access points. They expected you to respond the old way. But when the moment came, you didn't. You moved with restraint, with clarity, with authority that didn't need to announce itself. And that's when something shifted. Because survival reacts, but transformation chooses. And you didn't choose from fear, you chose from awareness. That's why your mind feels clearer now. That's why certain people feel distant or uneasy around you. That's why what once tempted you feels hollow. You didn't just resist something, you outgrew it. And when a chosen one outgrows a cycle, the entire spiritual atmosphere must recalibrate. That's the part no one explains. Growth doesn't just change you. It forces heaven to adjust what comes next. Because here's the truth most people never realize. Destiny has timelines, but maturity can accelerate them. And you matured quietly, without applause, without guidance, without rescue. You healed in silence. You detached without drama. You stopped negotiating with old versions of yourself, and that sudden internal leap collapsed timelines that were never meant to continue. Paths of delay, cycles of repetition, assignments that only existed because you were still learning. They lost jurisdiction. What happened next wasn't chaos, it was protocol. Your movement activated recalibration. Covering increased. Access shifted. Authority expanded. Doors that once drained you sealed permanently, and gifts that were dormant began waking up because you finally had the stability to carry them. That's why your discernment feels sharper, why your intuition feels louder, why your tolerance for what's misaligned feels lower. This isn't isolation. This is elevation requiring clarity. And it didn't stop there. Your choice also disrupted people who underestimated you. Not because you confronted them, but because your growth removed their access. Some felt exposed, some felt unsettled, some felt their influence weaken. They mistook your patience for permission, your kindness for fragility, your silence for blindness. But now they're realizing something shifted and they can't control it. Your healing became a mirror, and not everyone can face their reflection. Now listen closely, because this is where anticipation turns into revelation. What heaven is preparing next is not random. Alignment always precedes release. Relationships are being repositioned. Doors will open without force. Others will close without explanation, not as punishment, but as protection. You're stepping into rooms you once thought were beyond you, not because you changed who you are, but because you finally stopped shrinking who you are. Provision is being unlocked, not just financially, but mentally, emotionally, strategically. Clarity is replacing confusion, direction is replacing anxiety, and the weight you used to carry is being redistributed because you're no longer operating from wounds. You're operating from wisdom. That's why things will begin to flow with less resistance. Divine connections are also being prepared. People who don't require you to perform, who don't compete with your calling, who recognize you without needing to control you. They will arrive with peace, not pressure. And protection is intensifying. Sudden disinterest in certain environments, quick discernment about certain people, inner warnings you didn't use to hear. These aren't losses, they're safeguards for what you're carrying now. Restoration is part of this too. Not a return to what was, but a return of strength, joy, stability, and authority in forms you never imagined. Nothing you endured was wasted. Nothing you lost was ignored. What was withheld was preserved until you had the capacity to sustain it. And now, capacity has been built. Here is the final truth. What you did wasn't small. It marked a turning point. It revealed a version of you heaven has been waiting on. One that cannot be manipulated by the past or controlled by expectation. And from this point forward, you are expected to walk differently, think differently, decide differently. When doubt whispers, answer with discipline. When old patterns call, answer with boundaries. When the world tries to pull you back, answer with clarity. Do not apologize for your growth. Do not shrink to be familiar. Do not return to identities you've already been delivered from. If your spirit feels steady right now, that's confirmation. A new season has already begun. Heaven adjusted, the path recalibrated, and now it's your turn to walk forward aware, aligned, and covered. Remember this, heaven was moved not by noise but by purity, alignment, and truth. And that tells you everything about who you truly are. Let me take you deeper now, because what follows this shift is where many chosen ones misunderstand what's happening and accidentally resist the very thing they prayed for. What you're stepping into does not arrive with noise. It arrives with responsibility, and that's why everything feels quieter, more focused, more intentional. Heaven doesn't flood a prepared soul with chaos. It entrusts them with weight. Right now, you may feel like you're standing between worlds. The old no longer fits, but the new hasn't fully materialized yet. That in-between space is not delay, it's calibration. It's the pause before release. The reason it feels uncomfortable is because your spirit is adjusting to a higher level of authority. You're being trained to move without constant reassurance, to trust alignment over emotion, to walk by discernment instead of urgency. Here's the curiosity most people don't recognize after a major spiritual leap. Silence often follows. Not because God has stepped back, but because you're being trusted to walk without being carried. Heaven is watching how you steward clarity, how you handle peace, how you manage boundaries, how you respond when the chaos that used to define your life no longer shows up to distract you. And this is where temptation subtly returns, not as obvious sin, but as nostalgia. Old conversations, old attachments, old habits dressed as comfort. The enemy doesn't always attack with fear. Sometimes it whispers familiarity. It tries to pull you back into versions of yourself you've already outgrown. Not because they're powerful, but because they're known. But you're different now. You don't need to fight what you no longer crave. You don't need to explain why you've changed. You don't need permission to protect your peace. The power you stepped into recently is quiet confidence, and that's what makes it dangerous to anything that relied on your emotional reactions. This next phase will test something specific: consistency. Not passion, not intensity. Consistency. Can you keep choosing clarity when no one is watching? Can you keep honoring boundaries when it would be easier to bend them? Can you keep walking forward without constantly looking back for validation? That's the expectation heaven has now placed on you, not to struggle, but to steward. Because what's coming requires stability, Influence requires grounding, favor requires humility, visibility requires integrity, and you're being positioned for all of it. You may already notice people starting to treat you differently. Some with respect they never gave before, some with distance they can't explain, some with curiosity they don't understand. That's not coincidence. Your presence is carrying weight now. And here's the delay most chosen ones misinterpret. Not everything will manifest immediately. Not because you're not ready, but because timing protects impact. What's being prepared needs the right environment to sustain it. Rushing it would dilute it. So instead of everything exploding at once, you'll notice steady alignment. Right people, right conversations, right opportunities, right insights, all arriving without force. Pay attention to what feels peaceful now. That's where God is moving. Pay attention to what feels draining. That's what's being removed. You no longer need to chase confirmation. Your discernment is confirmation. You no longer need to prove your calling. Your consistency will reveal it. There will be moments when you're tempted to wonder if anything really changed. When progress feels internal instead of visible. When growth feels subtle instead of dramatic. That's when you must remember internal authority always precedes external elevation. Heaven builds foundations before it builds platforms. And now new expectations are forming. You'll be expected to move with restraint where you once reacted, with wisdom where you once rushed, with faith where you once feared. This isn't pressure, it's preparation. Because the next version of your life cannot be sustained by old coping mechanisms. You are entering a season where your words carry more weight, where your decisions ripple further, where your obedience impacts more than just you. That's why purity matters now. Not perfection, purity of intention, purity of motive, purity of alignment. Let this settle in you. You are no longer being called to survive. You are being called to lead your own life with authority, to walk without confusion, to choose without fear, to stand without apology, and heaven is not asking if you're capable. Your recent action already answered that. So when things feel different, don't question it. When silence replaces chaos, don't fill it with noise. When peace replaces urgency, don't sabotage it. This is what alignment feels like. This is what maturity sounds like. This is what happens after heaven takes notice. The path ahead is clearer now. Not because everything is revealed, but because you're finally steady enough to walk it. And as you do, more will unfold. Step by step, layer by layer, in perfect timing. You didn't miss your moment. You stepped into it. And from here on, every decision matters, not because you're being watched, but because you're awake.